Hello and welcome to another episode of the Healthy Middle Ground podcast with Jen Curtis. Today, I want to talk about why fat loss is so hard for mums. Now, I want to preface this by saying that fat loss is hard, right? It is just hard for everyone, regardless of whether you're a parent or not. Fat loss is a hard thing to do. And I know there are people on the internet that sell, this one simple solution or this one hack or this one trick, or all you have to do is eat clean, or all you have to do is cut out carbs or follow a carnivore diet or be a vegan or whatever. But they're usually just people who have succeeded doing something and then think it's going to work for everyone. Fat loss in general is hard for everyone for a few reasons. One, just eating fewer calories than you are burning is a difficult thing to do. It is hard to do. There's also so much misinformation out there that you can be working really, 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 really hard, but on the wrong things. And so you're not getting any results, even though you're trying really, really, really hard. So misinformation makes all of this so much harder because it's just such a sea of misinformation out there that knowing what the right things are is just incredibly difficult. Having the right information and being sure about the right information is also incredibly difficult. But I think the hardest thing is that people have this idea that people love to make really big changes and do something really big and life-changing and something that's a lot of effort in a short amount of time, and like to focus on those sorts of things. So, for example, doing a really, really, really hard workout and absolutely crushing yourself today in a workout, thinking that you're burning fat and building muscle and doing loads of really amazing things, or, starving yourself half to death, or doing a really, really strict diet that cuts out loads and loads of things for a short amount of time, or not eating enough today and this morning. That people like to focus on those big things, and fat loss is not about those big things that feel really, really tangible and I'm doing lots of work. Fat loss is about doing very small, almost insignificant things consistently enough over a long period of time. So instead of eating nothing today, it's eating just slightly less than what you need over many weeks or months. Instead of really killing myself on a workout today, it's about consistently showing up for workouts and progressively building strength over many weeks and months, and doing maybe a little bit less than what you think you should do in a workout, and eating maybe a little bit more than what you think you should eat if you're trying to lose fat, but doing it consistently for a long period of time, and not having that second coffee or that second latte today, or that second glass of wine, or that second dessert, or second helping of food. It's lots and lots of little things that don't feel very big or very significant in the moment, but they add up to something very significant over a long period of time. And I think that is the hardest thing about fat loss for absolutely everyone, because it's about delayed gratification. And that makes fat loss so hard, is being able to focus on those things and tell yourself in the moment, no, this is important, that I don't have this extra piece of cake, or that I don't have this second portion of chips, or that maybe I don't have chips with my burger. Things that don't feel that big, that can make it. They're the things that you really, really need to focus on for a long period of time. And that makes fat loss very, very hard. But there are some really big things and drivers that make this so much harder for mums. And the reason why I've decided to do this podcast today is because I am right in the thick of it, right? So to just give you a bit of context in my life, I had my third child 8 months ago, and I actually found the postpartum period really fun this time. I really enjoyed baby number 3. I have lots of help. I have a very supportive husband. I have a wider community. I have a big family, and have lots of childcare. And it honestly, baby number 3 I've talked a lot online about how much I've enjoyed baby number 3, but this past month has been extremely difficult. If you don't know, I live in Israel. This country is obviously at war. So the whole last year has been extremely difficult. But the last month, my husband has been away a lot on reserve duty and not been at home. We've also had 10 days of no childcare because it's been the Rosh Hashanah and Sukkot holiday here in Israel. And I have just been plunged into 24/7 childcare. I have been solo parenting much of the time. Again, I do have a lot of help and support from my family-in-law, but it's still really, really hard. So I can't even imagine how hard it is for someone who doesn't have that. But being 24/7 with 3 little kids, I have an 8-month-old, a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old, and parenting them full time 24/7 on my own has been incredibly difficult. And my diet has not been great over this past period. I've had really good intentions and I've done a lot of the things that I'm supposed to do. And I know what I'm supposed to do, but implementing them, even with all the experience and the knowledge that I have, implementing it when you are 24/7 with little kids is so hard. And so I wanted to talk about that a little bit today because it's just so fresh and real in my life. And it's just given me I've always had compassion and a lot of respect for anyone doing this, raising young children. But it's times like this that really, really remind me, why I do what I do and why it's so hard for mums to do. I work mostly with mums, right? So why it's so hard for mums to do the things they need to do. And I think every so often I do need a reminder as a coach of why my clients are struggling and what very real realities they're facing. That just keeps me much. I've never been one of these coaches who's like, no excuses, you got to do it no matter what, just do the things. I've always been somebody who takes like the wider context of what's going on in your life into account. But these sort of times really remind me of just how important it is to do that and how important it is to help guide people through those really intense parenting periods. I also found it pretty easy to lose a lot of the baby weight. I lost about over 6 kilos in about 6 months postpartum and was down to about 65 kilos. And I think I even got down to just below 64 kilos and was so probably about 8 kilos in total of postpartum weight loss in about 6 months. And I was feeling really, 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 really good. And then I got hit with the holidays, the summer holidays, and then going back to work. And then this period just hit me like a sack of bricks, and I'm still floating around 65, 66 kilos. It's jumped up quite significantly over the past week. I think mostly to do with bloating. I'm feeling very puffy. I've got a really big bloated stomach. And I just really noticed how hard it was. These past 10 days in particular, I just really noticed just how hard it is to do the things that I know I need to do. I still want to lose I feel my absolute best around 62 kilos. And so I've got 2-3 kilos left to lose to feel my absolute best. And I was sort of well on track to doing that before I got hit with all of these holidays. But being 24/7 around kids, I kind of had quite high hopes 10 days ago that like I'm going to do it even though I'm around kids all the time and even though I'm solo parenting, I'm going to keep doing the things that I need to do. And the reality of it was just so difficult to do, even with the best intentions and with knowing what I need to do. So anyway, with that very long preamble, I want to talk about some like really specific reasons why doing this, trying to lose weight, trying to prioritize your health, trying to get strong, trying to build muscle, trying to get fit is so hard when you are a mum to little kids. And these are reasons that I think I don't hear anyone else talking about. Like, some of them maybe, but there are a few of them that I think get missed out of the conversation. So the really obvious one is sleep deprivation, right? Any sort of sleep deprivation. I mean, it just makes you feel shit, first of all. When you feel shit, it's just much harder to eat in a calorie deficit, and your drive for eating carbs and sugar just goes through the roof. But it also means that you have longer days, right? So there is a bigger window of opportunity for eating. And I think people underestimate that. If you are, I think back to before having kids, and I would get like 9 hours sleep every night. Now that's kind of crunched down, and sometimes I get a lot less than that, it means that the day is much longer, and that you start eating earlier in the day and you finish eating later. And it just means that those extra eating opportunities can just build up to a few hundred calories, and that can be really significant when you're trying to lose body fat. It's also important to note that stress is much higher once you have little children. There's just no way around it. Even if you're a stay-at-home mum, or you have tons and tons of daycare, just the stress of just feeding them, just all the things you need to do. I was really struck this past week, just how sort of grueling the sort of daily grind of getting food ready. And then my kids would eat and they'd leave a massive mess all over the table. And then you have to clean all of that up, and you've got all these dishes to clean. And then all of a sudden someone else is hungry, and then you have to feed them again. And it's just this non-stop cycle. Yesterday, I literally felt like I spent my entire day either tidying up or preparing food, and my house was still such a mess by the end of the day. And that non-stop just treadmill of chores, it's just so exhausting. I remember sort of the sixth time that I had to clean everything up. It's just so tedious and boring, and it's not fun having to. I don't mind doing a bit of cleaning and tidying. My kids left this morning. It's quite nice to sort of tidy everything up and listen to a podcast. But when you're doing nothing but that all day and every day, it's just so mind numbing at times, that I think then we really reach for things that are going to give us some instant gratification. And that's where I do find myself either grabbing a bit of chocolate or having a few spoons of ice cream. And it does taste so good when you're feeling so miserable and wretched. Those bites of something that just is like a party in your mouth is just so enjoyable in those moments. So when enjoyment of food is so high like that, it's really hard to stop yourself from doing it. I think also we often underappreciate how much less active we are when we have little kids. Yes, you're sort of running around and cleaning bums and having to tidy up after them, having to prepare food. But it's nowhere near the sort of, especially if you were somebody who was really into fitness, it's nothing compared to the sorts of activity levels that I had pre-having kids. And I do try to find opportunities whenever I can to exercise with them, go for a walk with one or all of them, or go for a bike ride, or get on my rollerblades. But that's currently with an 8-month-old. That's not really possible unless my husband's round as well, either to be with the baby or for there to be two of us going out with all of the kids on rollerblades or whatever. And you still find yourself, we went out rollerblading the other day, and it was really fun and it was really nice, but we were out for about an hour. But I'd rollerblade it for a minute or so, and then I'd have to stop to wait for my son to catch up with me. And then they need to have a drink, and then you need to stop for drinks breaks, and then they say they're tired and you have to stop for that, and then you get going again, and then the 3-year-old needs to pee, and then all of a sudden the 6-year-old needs to do a poo. And even in that hour of physical activity, I put my watch on to see what I was doing. It was, the actual calorie burn, obviously watches aren't completely accurate, but I know that if I was to go out for an hour just rollerblading on my own, I'd burn somewhere in the region of probably 500 calories. At least that's what my watch would say. Whereas in this hour, it was under 200 calories. And I just spent so much of it stopping and getting water out and doing this and cleaning bums and whatever. So it's just so hard to really be as active as you would like to be when you do have small kids around. Even if you're really proactive about it, you also have much less energy, partly because you're sleeping a lot less, right? So I find myself much more sort of sitting down on the sofa and going like, oh, I just need to sit down for a minute. You just have so much less energy, not just because of the sleep deprivation, but also because it's very emotionally taxing all the time. So it makes you mentally tired. I mean, especially when my kids squabble and fight. I had a day yesterday. My two boys, the 6-year-old and the 3-year-old, they can play fantastically. And they are sometimes, they'll just go off in the garden and they'll play together and it's wonderful. But sometimes they fight constantly and they're boys and they're like very physical boys. And the fighting starts like from verbal, like shouting at each other and calling each other names and winding each other up, to like literally kicking each other and like rolling around on the floor trying to punch each other in the face. And it's like, it's so tiring to just be non-stop breaking them up and trying to explain to them like why they shouldn't do that and how they should communicate and what they should. It just really wears you down, and you have just so little energy. It's so emotionally tiring. It really contributes to just overall energy levels. So when you do get an opportunity to work out, I know for me over the past 10 days, I've sort of tried to escape for sort of like little chunks of time, like a half hour here or a half hour there. I've gotten a babysitter. I've gotten my mother-in-law to look after the kids. Somehow I've managed to escape these little windows of opportunity. And one, I'm like, okay, I've got 30 minutes. I've got to just get something done. But second of all, I'm so tired and fatigued and mentally fatigued that I can't bring myself to do a hard workout. So I just focus on like, moving and stretching and light body weight stuff and just moving a little bit. But second of all, I'm so exhausted from all of and I'm going to talk about decision fatigue in a minute, but I'm so tired from thinking about what they need to eat and the emotional exhaustion of them fighting and things like that then I come to my workouts and I'm like, I just don't have any energy to decide what to do. Even if I have a training plan, I'm obviously not following it to the T when I have kids around me all the time. I'm just not getting enough time to work out. I'm not getting enough times a week to do my training plan. So I just can't even bring myself to sort of decide what it is that I need to do. It's just my decision-making credits are just so zapped. So that leads me into then another point is decision fatigue. You're making so many decisions on a day-to-day basis, especially if you have like 2 or 3 kids, like what they're going to eat, when they're going to eat, what they've already eaten today, keeping track of what they need to eat or how much they've had, or if they've had sugar, keeping track of what's in the kitchen, making notes about, writing a shopping list, thinking about when you're going to get time to go for a shop, thinking about what else needs to be done in the house, or, oh no, I've left the laundry like in the washing machine from yesterday. There's just so many little decisions that you're making day to day that I just find my decision-making abilities go right down the drain. I mean, it was my son's birthday last week, and I was just like, I just can't. I remember talking to my husband and my mother-in-law about what to do for his birthday and what to get him as a birthday present. And I was like, I can't even think about it clearly, let alone sort of coming to a decision and saying, okay, I'm going to do this. It feels so hard to make a decision. So you've depleted all of your decision-making credits and you just can't make any more decisions about anything. And now you've got to decide what you're going to have for lunch or what workout you're going to do. It's really hard. And it's just so much easier to be like, right, the kids are having schnitzel. I'm just going to eat some of the schnitzel and some of the pasta and whatever, at least, or just grab a yogurt or whatever it is. But it's so hard to think about what you should have and how it fits into your wider day and your wider week. And it can also be really hard to make the right decisions. It's just so much easier when something, more appealing is already there, it's already ready, and you can just grab that instead. Then there's also pregnancy and postpartum and all the hormonal changes that come with that. And most women will gain body fat during pregnancy. A lot of women gain body fat when breastfeeding. A lot of women gain body fat when they finish breastfeeding. I mean, there's just so many opportunities for things to sort of go wrong and for you to gain body fat. And it's so hard to then switch gears. Another thing that happens is that during pregnancy and breastfeeding, your metabolic rate is increased, so you can eat more food. And then when you finish breastfeeding and your metabolic rate plummets because you're no longer lactating, which is a very calorically expensive process, all of a sudden you're eating the same amount of food because you're used to eating that amount of food, but you don't need that much food now, so you start gaining weight. So all of that absolutely wreaks havoc and makes it really, really hard. I heard in a podcast recently that, men's bodies just they're kind of very steady and like week by week, month by month, over the course of many years. There obviously are changes, but they happen more gradually, and things don't happen to them that are like completely unexpected. So women's physiology is so sort of like, it so sort of catches us by surprise, and it feels like things that are happening to us, whether it's like premenstrual cramps or all of a sudden menstruation, and then you're pregnant and you've got all these changes happening that you just can't control and you're not used to. Then you're breastfeeding and all of these changes are happening at birth. All this stuff happens to you. Men don't have that sort of constant, like, these really extreme changes in their body and their physiology and their anatomy that happen kind of to them. Like, men have quite a much larger degree of control over their bodies. Like, we can't control having PMS. We can't control having hormonal changes postpartum. It just kind of happens to us, which is really, really, really unsettling and really kind of characterizes like a really big chunk of our lives as women. And then finally, I want to talk about like this other factor that I really noticed this time around. And that is just the constant handling of food all day. So in particular, yesterday, we spent almost all day at home, me and the 3 kids, and literally what felt like all day, I was either preparing food, getting someone to eat something, arguing with them about what they can eat and what they can't eat, clearing up from said meal or snack, preparing more food so that I would have some for the rest of the week, feeding then my baby, who's on a totally different schedule, eating wise than my son's. And then someone coming along going, I want an ice lolly, or I want a sweetie, or I want some chocolate, or whatever it is, because kids ask for this kind of stuff all the time. And then you either have to go and get it for them, or you have a fight with them about why they can't have sugar at this time, or why they need to have something else first, or they need to have something more nutritious, or whatever it is, whatever your approach and philosophy is. It's still then thinking about food and getting food for someone else. And just my entire day came down to like, and then there's keeping track in the back of your mind about what's in the fridge and what we need to get and what I need to top up on, and writing a list and doing a daily shop and going through the fridge to check that there's nothing that I've forgotten that we need to use up today, or maybe something I've forgotten that we need to throw away. Just so much handling of food all the time that it just makes it so hard to so much harder to not eat. So there's this thing that I say to a lot of my clients, that one way to avoid eating, chocolate or sweets or things that you kind of don't want to be eating, is to put them in an opaque box up high in a cupboard or on the top shelf, out of sight, out of mind, right? We have this box in our house that the kids haven't properly clocked onto yet, that has all the crisps and the chocolate and the sweeties and all the like junk food in it, but it's up high. It's out of, I don't see it, right? And this is really, really important because it's there, but it kind of doesn't register in my mind to go and rummage through it. Sometimes I do, but like to go and rummage through it, find something yummy to eat, it's really out of the way. Whereas every time I have any sort of food, like just right out in front of me, just on my kitchen counter, at the moment we have like a box of crackers that my daughter like just munches on in between, like she sort of sucks on them. She's teething and like starting to eat some food, and anyway she sort of like sucks on these crackers, and because they're there I see them like 100 times a day. And so at some point during the day I'll normally just dig in, and I might be getting some for her, but then I'll take a couple and eat a couple myself. It's just the fact that I'm seeing them all day every day increases my chances massively of eating them, which is why I tell people to put them in an opaque box high up, out of the way, out of arm's reach, out of kiddies' reach, and so that you can't see them. Because then if you're not seeing them, it's much less likely that you're going to just grab one and eat it. And I think about, my life pre-kids and just what the whole thing looked like. First of all, I had a lot of downtime. I had a lot of time to rest and recover. And I could come home from work one evening and say, I'm totally exhausted. I'm just going to spend the evening watching TV, and I'm going to get an early night, and I'm just going to chill, and I'm just going to ignore my phone and just like recover and reset. There's none of that now. It's just like you're constantly on the go. You've always got something to do. There's always got 10 things to do, and you have to pick one of them. But I was also, I was a busy trainer in a busy gym. I was doing CrossFit. I was in a CrossFit gym teaching classes and doing one-on-ones. And I would often do like 3 or 4 CrossFit workouts a week to start with. And then on my work days, the days when I was working frontally, like training people, which was 3 or 4 days a week, I was on my feet constantly. I was moving around constantly. I was showing people how to do a squat. I was sitting in a deep squat. I was hanging off a bar. I was showing someone how to do a pull-up. There were just lots and lots and lots of little reps that added up over the course of the day. And if I did a workout and had a work day where I was on my feet all day, I'd be burning almost 3,000 calories on those days. I was incredibly active. And my work didn't involve, because I was in a gym all day. I wasn't around food. I wasn't handling food at any point during the day. It would just get to the point where I'd be like really hungry, and I'd be like, oh, I've got to go and get my lunch, or I've got to go and buy something to eat because I'm really, really hungry. And then I'd handle food for that meal because I was hungry. And then that was it. I didn't have to handle food again. Just contrasting that to my life now of just constantly dealing with food and feeding little kids. It's just night and day. It's just so different, and it's so much easier. My activity is so much lower, and my opportunities for eating are so much higher. The temptation is there so much more. And I find that I often find it very easy not really easy, but easier at the beginning of the day to be like, okay, I'm not going to eat that. I'm not going to eat that. Like being really mindful about it. And then as the day drags on, we get into the witching hour and into the early evening, it's so hard to stop yourself from just grabbing a little bite of this, or just having a piece of schnitzel, or just, having a bit of chocolate with the kids, or whatever it is. Like decision fatigue sets in, and you've been resisting so much, like you've used up all your willpower, and now you've got no reserves left, and you just kind of grab something, and it's just so hard to resist in those moments. And it's often food that isn't even that amazing. I was like just giving my son cold pasta yesterday, which is not particularly appealing, but I still had to resist the urge of just like shoveling some in my mouth. I don't know why cold cooked pasta with like just completely plain, no like sauce, like not even heated up. I don't know why it suddenly becomes so irresistible in those moments, but it does. And then there is this one final factor as well that's like kind of mum culture that I find to be quite, like a lot of mums sort of almost, they embrace and sometimes even glorify getting a bit pudgy and putting on some weight and getting unfit. And there's a lot of mums around me that seem to sort of, be quite snobbish about, this is the way that, this is part of being a mum. And they kind of almost stick their nose up at anyone who makes any effort to be slim or to be fit. And it's seen as quite a sort of childish thing, I think. I think I get quite a lot of comments or glares or thing from other mums who it's kind of a bit of tall poppy syndrome of like, don't stick your neck out, don't be too different. I think, they want you to be part of, like, to be like them. And they're not trying that hard or they're not succeeding in this area. So they don't want you to either. There's this kind of like hot mess mum culture that I just find really, I really don't want to be a part of. But you're almost kind of expected to behave that way because that's just what everyone else around you is doing. And we do have, it's very human to have this tension between fitting in and being yourself. And today's culture is very much about, be yourself, don't worry about what anyone thinks, just be your true self and But it does ignore the fact that it is important to us as humans to fit in with the group. And we do need to find a balance between those two things. Some people are perfectly happy to be really crazy and eccentric and just very different from the group. But most of us, we do have a deep need to sort of fit in to the wider group and not stand out too much. But we also have a drive to sort of do what's important to us and according to our values. But this is another way that environment is so powerful because, when I think back to 7-10 years ago when I was working in that CrossFit gym, I was one of the trainers. I was around a lot of really fit people day in and day out, like a lot of other trainers, a lot of the trainees there. People who really cared about the way they looked, they cared about what they ate, they cared about their sleep, they like optimizing sleep and just optimizing their health in lots of ways. And when you're around, 90% of the people that I was spending my time with, they deeply cared about these things and being stronger, being as strong as possible and optimizing recovery so that you can come and do a really hard CrossFit workout. And so that sort of culture around you really, sucks you in and makes it really hard to do anything other than what the people around you are doing. But if you go from that kind of culture to then becoming a mum and you find yourself in like kind of mainstream mum culture where everyone is a little bit overweight and starting to get, very unfit and, trying to cover it up with, certain types of clothes and dressing a certain way and whatever, it can be really hard to do something different because you kind of want to fit in with the crowd. And when you do decide to do something different, it can just be hard because whether it's real or just perceived pressure from others, there is a sort of pressure to fit in and not be too different. And maybe there's little comments that you get, or you feel like maybe it's all in my head, our head as well. Maybe nobody's really thinking about us. I think most people are pretty self-involved and aren't really spending too much time thinking about us. But I think also the drive to fit in and be like everyone else is much, much, much stronger once you become a mum. I think it's much easier to kind of not give a fuck and just be yourself when you don't have children. But I think it is like, we've evolved to care deeply about what, our wider community and what the people around us think of us and our children, because it's important for survival. Maybe not so much in the modern world, but it is important for our, mental health and for just our overall well-being to feel a part of a community, and to, somebody who has like a lot more friends that they get on with, and gets on with the people around them, rather than having some sort of like, whatever tension with the people around them. It does improve your overall health and well-being. So it's not just as simple as, I think that today the narrative is like, just don't worry about it. Just don't think about what other people think of you. It just doesn't matter, because it does matter. It matters to us all deeply. And we do need to find the balance between, living according to our own values, but also fitting into the wider culture around us. And that can be a really, really hard tightrope to walk, especially if you're not totally aware of it and aren't kind of being very, very proactive about how you address that kind of clash. Okay, so I guess that's pretty much all I have to say about that topic, but I do want to leave you with just a few practical things of what you can do about it. And I think I have 3 things that you can do just during this life phase. One is to plan. Planning is so important. I get my clients to plan, to make a sort of general meal plan, but to also plan their days in advance, to plan the whole day of eating in advance. But in this particular topic, you also want to plan days with your kids, whether it's just like the weekends or, longer holidays, you want to have a plan. Even if it's just a rough plan of like, we're going to go and do this today, we're going to go do this on the other day, because otherwise the whole day can just, and I've done it myself, I pretty much did it yesterday, where the whole day just turns into one blur of like eating and cleaning up, and there's nothing to look forward to, and there's nothing else going on, and there's no time that's focused on anything else. And with planning, what you can then do is you can start to automate certain things. So what I get my clients to do is to create a kind of meal plan based on the foods that they like to eat. I get them to eat at regular times. So breakfast, lunch, afternoon, snack, and dinner. So 4 meals a day for most people, around 8 a.m., 12 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 8 p.m, and to aim to eat around a 2-hour window, and then to have a few go-to meals that you can eat at those times. And then what you can start to do is you can start to automate a lot of the decision making and a lot of what you're doing day in and day out when it comes to food. Something else you can do, so number 2, is to have different strategies for different times. So when you're in your boring everyday routine and you're going to work and you're doing your normal stuff, you want to have one plan when it comes to eating, when it comes to your diet, when it comes to your workouts. But often trying to just do the exact same thing when you have a sick kid, or when you're the weekends when you're with the kids the whole day, or on holiday when you're with the kids for an entire week, it normally doesn't work. And you need to have a plan B. You need to have a kind of damage control strategy that might involve eating more food than you otherwise would, and maybe not doing as many workouts as you would usually do, but trying to get as much movement and trying to eat as well as you can, or as closely to what you would eat in your normal everyday routine as possible. But I've been there, done that, got the t-shirt where I've just said, right, I'm just going to do exactly on the weekend, I'm going to do exactly what I do in my normal week. And it just doesn't work. So I do think it's important to have a different mindset and a different strategy around those occasions. And finally, the third thing is mood first. If you are sleep deprived, if you're feeling shit, if you're just driven into the ground with like, kids and house and all this stuff, trying to just pile exercise and diet on top of that is a recipe for disaster. When you're having a bad day, or if you're having a very intense week, let's say you have a kids off school because they're sick, or it's a holiday and, you're solo parenting a lot of the time, you have to focus on what you can do to get yourself feeling better. Because when you feel better, and this might not be on that day, it might be, next week, it might be for tomorrow. What can I do today that's going to make me feel better tomorrow? Because when you're feeling better, you're going to be able to do the things that you need to do more easily. So getting an early night's sleep, doing some exercise, doing some wind down sort of activity so that you sleep better, getting some childcare, getting some help, like whatever it is, going to a yoga class, getting out for a run tomorrow morning while your husband does drop off. Whatever it is, but what can you schedule in to make you feel better and get you in a better headspace so that all the other stuff flows much more easily? Okay, so that's it. If you want to sort of get started or take things a bit further, I've got loads of free resources. I'll link them below. I have a free 10-day course for how to lose weight. I have a free course on strength training. I have an emotional eating course that might be really useful for this sort of period. And I am hopefully going to be finishing up today a CBT course that could be really, really helpful. So I'm going to link all of those things. If you want to, take things further, sign up to one of those courses or all of them, and you'll be getting a load of really useful and amazing emails from me. I hope you enjoyed that episode. It was all a bit of a mishmash of brain farts, but I wanted to share that with you because I think it is really important to acknowledge why this is so hard at this stage in our lives. It doesn't mean that you can't do it. And it just might take longer than you expect. And there might be times where you just, you got to just lower your expectations. It's just not going to happen. But I do still think it's really important for us to do what we can to feel our best and to make sure that our cup is full. We have a lot of responsibility and a lot of stress, and obviously our children come first, and we've got to keep the whole ship afloat and keep it going. But part of that does mean looking after yourself. I don't think it means that you need to completely sideline your own desires or, not ever lose weight or anything like that. I think you can still work towards these things. You just got to be realistic about it, and you might have to do it in chunks with sometimes little breaks along the way, because you just can't do everything because you're human. So just, I don't know, having realistic expectations around the whole process. And of course, if you do need help losing body fat and you want a coach who doesn't live in la la land like I did before having children, but actually understands what normal mums go through and how hard it is and how much of an uphill battle it can be at times for mums to get control of their eating habits and lose weight, then ping me a message. I'm often taking on clients to my online one-on-one coaching program, so we can have a little chat and see if it's a good fit. Okay, I think that's everything for today. Thanks for listening. Bye.